Hey guys, it's Christina. This is Vox and Guest, and I am joined today by TDP, the Domogalla Project. Say hi, guys.
What's up? Howdy, everybody.
Zach, you look so cozy. You're like a little
I
musical
am.
burrito. Look at you.
Got
So,
my pickles.
why don't you guys quickly introduce yourselves? Tell everybody what you do in the band, and we'll go from there.
Hey, I'm JW. I'm the drummer. I do a lot of the social media and online stuff, and that's my special job.
There you go. I
I'm
have a
Zach
spe-
Domogalla. I write songs, play guitar, and sing. They do all the heavy lifting. I just show up.
Yeah, he just shows up. And
That's
then
it. Tell
not
us.
joined today is Caleb, who's out on business, unfortunately, and Will, our new bass player, also couldn't join us today, kind of last minute.
Right, and Caleb does lead guitar and some vocals, right?
Yeah, co-writes with us.
Yeah.
Some of the songs are from his brain.
There you go. We have all kinds of brains involved here, and we're going to get to that. But listen, I don't know if you guys have seen the show before, but I do consider myself at this point a seasoned and highly serious journalist. So I feel compelled to begin every episode with a very important, meaningful, some might say philosophical question. I think you guys can handle it. Okay. Are you ready?
We're ready.
Okay, here we go. Which is the bigger sensory nightmare? Wet socks or wet sleeves? Yeah, that's the right answer, Zach.
I'm going with wet socks too,
Yeah.
really.
You're both wet socks?
Yeah, can't imagine a more personal hell.
Yeah.
That's so much how I feel. But have you had wet sleeves, though? I love Zach's face. Zach is just disgusted by the whole concept.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because this is okay. So, like 2 days ago, and I'm sick. I got bronchitis. I was making some hot tea for my throat. Sugar got everywhere. I was walking around barefoot, and being autistic with everything. Sugar.
Yeah. No.
So I kind of just relived that for a moment. But yeah, wet socks.
Or what about eating a soft food and getting a little crunchy in it somehow?
That's not okay either. No, it's not okay because it makes you suspicious of every other bite that you're ever going to take of that food.
It does.
It ruins the credibility of the soft food for me. Yeah, guys, if you haven't picked up on this yet, this is going to be the most neurodivergent episode of this show so far because you got three autistic people talking to each other right now, and holy shit, we're going to get to all that. But before we do any of that, having introduced, Caleb in his stead and Will, who's coming into the picture, JW and Zach, we have a lot to talk about together. But I want you guys to start me off with the Wayback Machine. So I know more about Zach than I know about anybody else in the band, just for obvious reasons. But why don't you tell me how you guys got into being musicians in the first place, and then how you met? He's pointing at you again, JW. You're the point man. Well, he's the point man. You're
Start it
the
off.
Yeah.
Well, I got into music pretty early in the band in elementary school, and back then it was mostly just a way to like get out of class. I didn't really take anything seriously until I'd already graduated, and I had a really good friend who was a drummer, and he was phenomenally talented, is phenomenally talented, and he really inspired me. And so I took my money from my little restaurant job when I was 17, and I went and bought a $500 Pearl drum set. It was a piece of shit, but I played that for 2 or 3 years, and then joined my first band, and it's just been that way ever since. I was really taken aback by just how talented he was and all the different things he could do. And I had thought I was a drummer in the school band. I played the bass drum, I played the snare drum.
Okay.
But putting all of that together was something completely different. And I really longed for that usefulness, I guess, like being a part of a group and being the leader of the rhythm section and was always something that really intrigued me. So I've been playing drums for close to 15 years.
Okay.
And I started a lot later than a lot of people. I was 17 before I sat down behind a drum set for the first time.
Okay.
But I taught myself how to play with YouTube videos and Guitar Hero
cool.
Metallica.
Very cool. Okay. I love that. So you started off in drums and you stuck with the drums.
Mm-hmm.
What made you pick drums in the first place?
I really don't know. I think like deep down it might have been like a subconscious desire to piss off everybody in an 80-foot circle around me for the rest of my life. But you know, and like looking back, it was like I had no way of knowing I was picking like the single most expensive hobby in the known world. But I guess there was just something that about beating stuff constantly that just appealed to my inner chimp brain.
There you go. That may be my favorite answer of why did you pick your instrument so far. So anything that involves the phrase inner chimp brain is an automatic winner with me. But okay. So you and then you were in, I'm assuming, bands prior to meeting Zach, which I know we're going to get into that a little bit after we talk about Zach's origin story. But were they always originals? Were there any cover bands thrown in there? Did you do your cover band time like we all pretty much do, or?
Well, when I was 19, I joined my very first band, and we were Renegade Jane, and we were a 70s to 90s rock cover band, and we would play stuff like Nirvana and Zeppelin and Skinner and you know all that stuff, and we would go from bar to bar, and it was awesome because I was 19, and when you're with the band, that's all you got to say to get booze.
Right.
And so I wasn't very good, and nobody was really that good. And I don't know how we got booked for shows because looking back, like I said, we really were not good. But we had the lights, we had the gear, we had the drums, and we would show up and have a really good time for 4 hours and get paid to do it. And you know, that just kind of dissolved over time as we grew up and went our separate ways. And then after that, it was pretty much exclusively original bands and mostly metal, punk, pop punk, until I met Zach. And then, you know, I started playing like dream pop. And country.
Right. But I do hear all of those influences in the music, which we'll get back to. But okay, so Zach, you are... you've got quite a story, my guy. I know you were 13 when you started guitar. Was that just like oh my God, I got to pick up a guitar thing? Was there somebody in particular that you had seen play that inspired you? Why the guitar?
You know, actually, all right, so music itself was way too overstimulating for me. It made me sick to my stomach.
Wow, okay.
Before I started playing.
All music?
All music. You know, my mom had a lot of records, and you know, she turned me on to like the Beatles and the Doors, Beethoven. I mean, all sorts of things. But yeah, for the first several years of my life, music itself would overstimulate me to the point where I would actually throw up.
Okay, wow.
And
sensory overload is no fucking joke, guys.
Yeah.
It is no joke. Like, if you're confused by that statement, you know, Zach is not alone on that. That is okay. So that's and then okay.
One of my closest friends, you know, and I mean I love Ozzy and Black Sabbath. One of my closest friends growing up as well. You know, he didn't believe me. You know, no one did, but he was playing some. He just got a Sabbath tape. And I was at his house, and I'm like, dude, I'm getting sick. And he's like, nah. I threw up, but
the typical Sabbath reaction to the first listen to Sabbath.
It was vomit of joy.
It was joy vomit. It was joy vomit, JW. It wasn't sadness vomit. It was joy vomit. That's a very different thing, but okay.
Very different.
Well, you know what? That is pretty much the encyclopedia picture for fuck around and find out, if you ask me. You told him. You told him you were going to hurl. He didn't believe you. You know, clean up in aisle 9. That's your fault, dude. So, okay. So how did you get from that to actually being able to play?
Well, in school, around the age, you know, 12, 13, It was the either play football or join band.
Football
And I'm
makes me
like,
throw up, so I get that. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I'm like, no football. So band it is. And because of not listening to music prior, being able to, so I went into band and not knowing anything about it. And I'm like, hey, you know what? The flute sounds cool. I'm gonna pick that.
Okay.
Didn't know anything about where it was. And the town that I grew up in was 1 square mile. My graduating class was like 19 people.
Holy
And we
shit.
all went from preschool together throughout high school graduation.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we was ignorant. We didn't know very much.
Okay.
Small town, cut off from society. And so when we picked our instruments, we had to wait several weeks while they got delivered from some other place. So the excitement built, and then the day came, all of our instruments showed up, and they handed me this tiny little case. And I'm like, the hell is this? I'm like, that's your flute. And I was like, ah. Yeah. And then, the cool part about that is, though, as a male flautist, is surrounded by all the chicks. And, so that was neat. I couldn't talk to them because, being autistic.
Yeah.
But I was close to them, so that was
there
cool.
you go. Proximity is half the battle when it comes to like school relationships anyway. It's like,
right.
hey, you sit next to me in class. We're dating now. Okay. It's been built on less
they would
than
say hi. I would get nervous and run away, but I was close enough for them to say hi, so it was a win.
There
so
you go.
Played the flute.
Yeah.
So about that one time at band.
It'll be like this one time at band camp.
Ooh. That's, you know what? That's another thing. That comes up all the time when I bring up the fact that I play the flute.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. I would not sleep tonight if I didn't bring up American Pie.
I'm just gonna start lying.
I do it every day. I do it daily.
They mailed me a cello. That was it. It was the cello. You just, okay. So you did not, I assume, then continue to play the flute, or were you stuck?
I actually did play for a while.
Okay.
Until I was kicked out of band. But so once I started playing music, it made a lot of sense to me.
Okay.
Once it made sense to me, it became a hyper focus. And it let me express things that I couldn't otherwise express.
Mm-hmm.
And I was staying over at a buddy's house, and his grandfather played guitar. His grandfather left his guitar there. And I said, can I just pick that up and check it out?
Yeah.
And they said, yeah. I picked it up, and I was dinking around on it, and something in here just went off. And I'm like, yeah, I got to get me one of these.
Okay.
And, I've been playing it right ever since.
I mean, do you think that being in control of making the music was what got over that sensory overload bit? Because that's a lot to overcome, especially I was in band for years and years, from like 4th grade until like 10th or 11th grade. I know what the band room sounds like. And if actual studio produced music had you just horking all over the place, I don't know how you kept your chunks together around, tuning up and whatever. Like, how do you think your brain flipped to accommodate that? Do you have any sense at all? I find that fascinating.
I think it's because I wasn't a listener. I was involved.
Okay. Okay.
It then became a hands-on experience.
Okay, gotcha.
So it was easier for me to mentally digest it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Okay, but then that's an interesting place to start, considering where you went after that. So, okay, you're 18, you're in your apartment, you're recording your first album. That was what, Act 2?
Yeah.
Why not Act 1? Just curious. Since it was your first album, I was wondering about that.
Because I had Act 1 of my life was already over.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Okay. So you started with that, and I mean, that's you writing everything, recording everything, producing everything. That's not online anywhere, though, is it? I didn't find it.
It's not.
You're like, it will never, ever, ever see the light of the day.
Well, I just because of the fact of you seem to know a lot about things that I've done.
I do.
I as a producer, I have these outrageous
Standards.
standards. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I
but
hear you. Too lo-fi for you to, yeah, I gotcha. Okay.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Didn't you have enough other music that I think people will be okay? They could spend days on Zach's discography before they even get to the Domogalla project and be just fine. But so okay, so you've got this album, you managed to get the attention of this program director, you start getting airplay and radio interviews, which is pretty impressive to be doing at 18, 19 years old. But then you start going and playing these big venues, you're headlining, right? Or, kind of main support, regional, whatever. Okay. And then you do this show for the American Cancer Society. Okay. Big amphitheater, and you get water sign interested and you get signed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are you at that point just freaking out? Like, how is this all happening so fast? Because you started at 13 and then you're 18, 19, 20, you're on the radio, you're getting signed to a label. Like, most people, that doesn't happen, Zach. Like, most people are like, no, I was 19 and I was, I don't know, like sleeping a lot or whatever. But like what do you ascribe that to? Were you pushing the music really hard? Was it just, I mean, obviously you're talented, so I understand that bit of it, but like, how did that all kind of happen?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I thought about this many times. My mom's actually one of my biggest supporters from day one. When I told her that I
Hi,
was gonna drop out of
Valerie.
high school,
Hi, Valerie. We
Yeah.
got to shout out Valerie. Hi, Valerie. Yeah.
when I told her I was going to drop out of school to pursue music, she supported it.
Cool.
She knew I was different, and it was just a thing. But she was the person who called a program director when I was
Okay.
before I was 18, and she's like, go get it, make it happen.
Cool.
So she supported me and pushed me in that, and once she did that, I hit the ground running, and I wasn't going to stop. I knew that music it was more than just a career choice for me. It had to be what I was going to do with my life, because I can't really do anything else.
Well, you probably could, you just don't want to.
Well, I could. It's hard. I've had 3 professions in my life. Music, I was in fugitive recovery, and I worked in the gold mining industry. But fugitive recovery was a very neurodiverse job. I was really good at it.
By the way, that would make an awesome band name, just saying. Fugitive recovery. Okay, wow. So does that mean what I think it means literally, that like there are fugitives and you go get them?
I put really bad people away. Yes.
Was it bail bondsman?
Wow.
You skip trace work and stuff like that. Yeah, but I worked very closely with the police department and went after some really bad people.
I could completely see where an autistic brain, not that we're all the same, but like, many an autistic brain would be great at that, because you probably find patterns and things that other people don't.
Mm-hmm.
You can synthesize things and connect dots that other people can't. Very cool. Okay,
Yeah,
so don't
really
say you can't do anything else. You just want to do music. I'm big on. I'm very specific about language, and especially when people are dinging themselves in some way, even unintentionally. So I had to call you out on that. But I mean, no, clearly music is a passion, and it's in your bones and your blood, and I totally get that. So mom sets you, like the little cars where you dip them back, and then you're just and you're on the radio, you're playing these venues. And then you made your second album, 22, right? Years old?
Finished when I was 21.
21. Okay. So, and that's Anywhere is Better Than Here.
Yes.
Okay. Which is great. We'll get to that. And then at that point, you had a couple years before something humongous happened to you, which I was kind of like, reading through things and researching and going, I recognize the name of that person and I recognize the name of that band. So you're 24 years old, you're playing a show, and, well, you tell everybody, who came up to you and wanted to be friends?
Okay, well, I guess shortly before that, a producer had heard my music and contacted me, and that producer was Rick Finch, who was producer, songwriter, and bass player at Casey and the Sunshine Band.
That's actually who I was talking about. Yeah, we'll get to John in a bit, but yeah, okay.
Yeah,
so go ahead.
And he flew me out from Nevada to Ohio to cut a solo album, one album deal, and I did that, and then finished up with that, and went back home and started. I had to reform the band a little bit.
Sure.
And change the sound a little bit, and then we went out and started playing shows. And we ended up by that time we had enough like regional success that we were to the point to either being main support for well-known artists or headlining for some festivals and things like that. And so we were asked to be main support for Marcy Playground. And,
now, was this after you got nominated for Grammys? Because you kind of glossed right over that little bit there, which is kind of a. I mean, you're very humble, Zach, but like, I mean, the people watching here are gonna want to know that you had Record of the Year nomination, Album of the Year, like Best New Artist. You were nominated for a couple of Grammys, weren't you?
5, but there's a process to it, and you go through a first round nomination process, which is a consideration round.
Sure.
And that's what I was on. I was considered for a Grammy. I did not actually have a nomination in my hand.
But I mean, come on, like that's still huge, right? So I mean, okay, so
Artist of the Year, Record of the Year, Album of the Year.
I think it was Best New. Yeah.
And what was the other one? Album of the Year, Record of the Year, Song of the Year, Best New Artist, and Best New Artist, Best Male Vocal, Best Pop Vocal.
There you go. Okay, so in the Grammy crosshairs, okay, and then so you go and you open for Marcy Playground, or you play for Marcy Playground. It was a concert with them, right? Were you one of a couple of opening acts?
Yeah, we were their main support.
Okay.
So meaning that I think there was 4 acts, but we were the ones that were up and introduced them.
Right. So you're playing, and a certain front man sneaks out, decides to watch you guys, watches you get an encore called, and then you become buddies with the front man for Marcy Playground, because that's what people do, right? I mean, like, that's a thing that happens to everybody all the time. So, okay, so talk to me about you and John and all of that. So, JW, you'll get to talk again, JW, I promise you. We just got to get Zach's entire history out of the way, and we'll be good, and then we'll have more talking to do. But
so I walked in to the venue for load in, and here's John sitting there restringing his guitar, and I walk up and I'm like, hey, I'm Zach, we're opening for you tonight. He's like, oh, cool. I was like, nice to meet you, and that was about it. He was busy, and I didn't want to be weird or anything, so I just
yeah.
But we started playing, and he had snuck out of the green room around back, came out to the front of the venue and was watching us. And then he watched probably half of our set before people realized
that it was him.
He was standing in the back, and then he got bombarded, so he ran back around. But so we had finished up, and I did my thing, thanked everybody, and said, up next is Marcy Playground. And we started walking back to the green room, and everybody starts yelling, one more song.
Very cool.
And we were like, what do we do? And John, lead singer, he looked at me and he's like, get back out there. They're screaming for it. I'm like, okay. So we ran back out there, and we did another song or 2, and got off stage, and we're heading back, and he was passing us to get on stage.
Yeah.
And he stopped me, and he said, are you leaving, or are you going to stick around until after the show? And I said, we plan on sticking around. And he's like, good, because I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
Then he went out and played a set, and I thought, I just upset John Wozniak on Marcy Playground. I'm going to be in trouble.
No, if you had played an encore and done Marcy Playground song, that would have gotten you in trouble. It also would have been kind of a baller move. But okay, so you're worried he's mad at you.
Candy by Marcy Playground. The song everyone.
But yeah, so we hung out and talked afterwards, and they said, "Hey, we got some regional stuff coming up. Why don't you hop on as our main support?" And I did, and we went and did California and Nevada, Arizona, a few other places. And then he offered me a contract on his record label. And so I did that when I toured with them nationally, and they relocated me to Raleigh, North Carolina from Nevada. And I was with them for probably, on their label for probably about 8 years. And then I ended up going off and starting my own. But yeah, we're all really good friends still.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, you keep looking at JW to fact check these things, but JW, you were not involved then yet, right? Were you, or were you? No, I didn't think so. Okay, all right.
You just told me these stories.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're the archivist. I got it. Okay, so you go through all of that, which is like kind of a big gloss for a lot of stuff, but you decide then at that point, around like 2017, I think, you're going to take a break. You want to focus on production. You want to focus on that, the business end of things. What was that? Was it just, were you a little overloaded because you'd just been touring and playing and, or was it more about honing a new part of the craft?
I guess I can talk about this, right? Yeah. It's because, yes, to all of that, but it's because I got really sick.
Okay. You do not have to go into any of that, by the way, if you don't want to. I'm huge on boundaries on this show, so whatever you're comfortable with.
I spent about 4 years in the hospital, about 30 surgeries.
Shit.
And was in a coma a couple of times. Had to learn to walk and feed myself more than once. Told I had 12 hours to live. It was pretty serious.
Wow.
So I was dealing with that and decided what a better time than to focus on running my own business.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're better. I mean, I know you're sick right now, but I'm glad you're better than that, at least. You're here, which is good, and not in the hospital. But okay, so that was about, 4 years before then you decided to put out Cherophobia, right? That's your, okay. So you have that, the next year goes by, everything and nothingness comes out. And then we're in 2022, which is not that long ago. Okay. And then talk to me about how the Domogalla Project, or now, I was there in the beginning when it was the Domogalla Project. Now you're just TDP, you're too cool to use all the letters. So, when did that, and then I can't believe we're still on the first question here, guys, but we are, but we had a lot to cover here. So, when did you guys hook up? I know you've got the label and everything. So when did the band, as we know it, well, as we basically know it now, the core group at least, come together?
We got together in like May of 22, after I had made a post online about looking for some people to play with.
We went back and forth.
Yeah,
on that
and we kind of went back and forth on that for a little while before we finally got together. I had just moved here into where I live now, and for the first time in my adult life, I owned a place that was big enough for me to put my drums and to have other people over, and that was a big part of my life that had been missing, because I had ended up taking a few years off, from music. I lived in a tiny place. I just had a baby, and so things came together to where I could play music again. So I felt comfortable reaching out. And
how long a break had you taken at that point?
4 years.
Okay. 4 years seems to be a thing. Okay. So you both were coming off of about 4 years in different relationship to music than you had been. Okay. And then you reached out, and after some back and forth, I guess, decided to, and that was when you guys met, right? You didn't, how did you find each other just to message? Was it like, hey, just is like a local group or something, like anybody in the area who wants to play kind of thing?
We have a local musicians group around Northwest Alabama, and that's where I had posted, and that's where he had responded to me.
Okay.
And he wasn't the first person that I had over to try this with. You know, I'd had a few people come out, and it just didn't work. We didn't mesh together. And I
Yeah.
mean, the first couple of times that me and Zach got together, we had a hard time meshing together too, you know, but
Okay.
unlike some of the other people, you know, he kept coming. So
Okay.
after 3 or 4 months of, playing and getting to know each other, things started to kind of click together, you know.
Yeah.
And when it did, we decided that it was time to start looking for another person to join the band. And that's when we found our first bass player.
Okay.
And
now we're family.
yeah, we didn't really have a name back then. I mean, Zach knew that he wanted it to have something to do with his name, which I'm fine with. I mean, I'm not writing the music. He had already had a catalog of songs
Sure.
that we'd learned together.
It was just easier to keep the name the way it was.
And then,
Sense, yeah. The branding and everything, that makes sense.
yeah, we ended up shortening the name to TDP because people had such a hard time
Spelling it?
either remembering or pronouncing Zach's name.
Okay. It's really not
So
that hard, but okay.
It's not, but
It's
here
phonetic.
in Alabama, yeah,
Oh,
people would be like,
Right.
people would be like, "What's the name of your band?" And we'd be like, "We're the Domogalla Project," and they'd be like, "The what?" You know. So I was just thinking, I was like, Avenged Sevenfold did it, System of a Down did it, Stone Temple's Pilots did it.
Right,
You know,
right.
you take your name and you turn it into 3 or 4 letters, and
Right.
then all of a sudden a long mouthful is something that people can remember and think
Yeah.
about. And
Yeah.
it worked. I mean, we had more engagement after I changed the name of the band than we'd ever
So
had before.
weird, but okay, nicely done though. Good catch. I mean,
he planned it that way. I mean, he figured that would happen. And he's smart when it comes to that kind
no,
of stuff.
that because that like I mean, a lot of people might have been like, oh, you know, is it the music? Is it the whatever? And you're like, no, it's the name. It's too long for people in Alabama, and we're gonna just have to make letters out of it. So okay, so
Yeah.
you became TDP. You had your first bass player, and then when did Caleb come into the picture?
Oh God, well, when was that? How long have you been with us?
Was it like 9 months now?
9 months. I'm terrible at when things took place.
That's okay.
But
It's
how
not
it
like
took place, I remember that.
okay, more interesting anyway.
I was running an open mic, a local open mic around here, and I come in, and he's so quiet. He's just very quiet, very reserved.
Okay.
Didn't talk much, and never saw him before. And he, I asked him, "Hey, what do you need?" And he didn't even bring a guitar. He was just like, "Hey, man." That's how we
Just
talked.
wandered in off the street. Okay.
Yeah, just kind of wandered in, looked around, and so, does anyone have a guitar I can use? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure I can arrange that.
Was your autism radar just immediately going off? Like, boop, boop, boop.
I knew that I liked him. I didn't know why. And
yeah.
After playing together for several months, I was still curious. I didn't know for sure if he was or not. I mean, his sister is.
Okay, but he wasn't out, so to speak. Okay.
Yeah. And then being around him more, and some of the things he did, like we did at Jacob's house in Nashville, that's the same thing I do. And I'm like, yeah, that seals it. I'll tell you that in a minute. But yeah, so he comes in, and I set him up, and he plays, 3 or 4 songs. And I've always been more like dream pop and what's popular on the other side of the United States, or even up in your area, Interpol, bands like that.
Yeah.
So around here, I didn't really know too much about like the country, And so we played these songs, and we finished. I walked up and I said, "I mean this as an absolute compliment. But those songs that you played, are those originals, or are those covers that I just
because you
never
wouldn't
heard
know the
before.
genre. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That is a
And,
compliment. I would take it that way, you know.
yeah, because they were so well written. And he's like, those were originals.
Mm,
And then I
okay.
asked him, hey, have you ever recorded anything before? Because I hear something in you. And he hadn't. And I said, well, maybe we should swap information and see about cutting you a demo or something at least.
Is this what became Underground Sound? Is that the
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, very cool.
yeah. And I saw him play lead, and because later on that night he had jammed with someone else who got up at the open mic, and he played lead that time, and I thought this guy's really really good.
Mm.
And a week later we were asked to do a show, and we had to perform with someone else on stage, backing them up, and we kind of wanted to have more of a fuller sound.
Yeah.
Because we were a little nervous how the performance was going to go with this front person, and so we added someone else in to play tambourine and backups and stuff like that. And I called him and I said, hey, yeah, you remember me? We talked the other night. You want to play a show in like 3 days? And he's like, yeah, sure. So we came and played lead, and he's just one of them people where I say, hey man, did you listen to the songs that you had to learn? No, just start playing them. And then he nailed it. One of them type of musicians. He's been in the band ever since.
Very cool. That's a great come into the band story. I love that. It's just like comes up on stage, very unassuming, blows the doors off the place, then just comes in like, yeah, sure, I'll just learn everything on the fly.
Sydney did the same thing when she was our bass player too.
Okay.
She walked in and she said, just start the song. And then we've been very fortunate to.
Yeah,
we had to look for a very long time, but when they started coming around, I had lots of talent.
Locks in together. So, well, look, I mean, generally, I try to get the song in the first half hour, but we've had too much to talk about. So I think this is a good point because we're going to start talking more about TDP and the songs that are on Spotify right now that everybody will absolutely be going and listening to let them hear what it is that you guys do. So why don't you guys just say a little something about Roses, and then we'll play it and we'll come back and we'll talk about it more.
Okay, that is as a new recording of an older song.
Mm-hmm.
We revised it in our new style, and it is not yet released. It'll be released on the 13th of this month.
Yep, it's out by the time people are seeing this. So yeah.
Right. So, but yeah. Anything you want to add?
I liked both versions of the song. I really enjoyed it. And I think that, it's one of those songs that can really mean something different to everybody who listens to it. And it can be, a song about grief or loss, or remembering something that you used to have, but either way, everyone's able to feel something different from this song, and I think that's what makes it really beautiful.
I love that, and I completely agree. Guys, sit back, relax, enjoy. This is Roses by TDP, the Domogalla Project.
There's roses on the headstone by my feet, and I pray that they will sink down for her to keep. Wash the medicine down the sink, 'cause there's only one way to live. Yes, there's only one way to live, and it ain't like this. Cold, it wasn't right. It was lonelier than space. What once began had to end, forever gone. Sleep well, my love, and I will write you most of the time love letters built for another life. Oh, my love. There's roses on the headstone where I weep, and I pray that I will sink down for you to keep. Wash the memories out to sea, 'cause there's only one way to live. Yes, there's only one way to live, and it ain't like this. It was cold, it wasn't right. It was lonelier than space. What once began had to end, forever gone. Sleep well, my love, and I write you most of the time. Love letters built for another life. Oh, my love, goodbye.
So I for some reason, even though this was a song from like wasn't this like a 2011 song? This was an old song. I think this was like way back.
2000, yeah, I recorded it with Rick Finch.
Okay.
So in 2009.
Okay.
Re-released 2010.
So it's yeah. So like, we're talking over a decade old, and the first time I found you guys on social media, it was a post that had roses on it. And so it was the first song of yours that I heard. And then of course, like I think I talked to your mom first, Zach. Like I think for some reason, like we were just chatting on social media, and I heard the song and I was like, wow, this is really good. And, mentioned it to people. And then, I started seeing you pop up more in my feed. I mean, I follow a lot of people, but I generally don't see any of them on Facebook, because why would Facebook show me the people that I follow? It's better to have people suggested to me that I have absolutely no interest in, like whatever. But so you guys, for some reason, actually were showing up in my feed, and I was like, these guys are really funny. Like the social media is really interesting. And then I caught wind of the fact that you guys are all neurodivergent. So of course, immediately it was like, yay, my people, but so I heard Roses, but it was the original version that I heard. And one of the things that I find so cool about listening to, because in researching for this show, I listen to everything that's available, right? So I went through your Spotify and I was like, I know there's more, because I know there's more. So I went and I looked and I found the website, and Zach, I've listened to everything that you have out, like all your albums, your singles, like all of that stuff. And so when I see that, you have songs that are on more than one album. And so I never know, okay, well, is that going to be like, it's just they pulled it from the old album and stuck it on there just to have another song, and they wanted a different, ear on it or whatever. You don't, what JW said about Roses, different version, and you do that, I think, with Self-Destruction and Burn. And there are a couple songs that you have out that are different, and like some of them are vastly different. Like Self-Destruction, vastly different. Percussion is completely different. The tempo is complete. But I love that you take these songs and you repurpose them around the sound that is very specific to TDP. And you guys are really, the music is its own niche. Like I can't say like, oh, you sound like this, or oh, you sound like that, or like I hear a bunch of different things when I listen to the music. And as I like to caveat it always, I only make comparisons when I think they're favorable. I'm aware that other people don't like the same music I do all the time. So I might mention one of these and you might be like, fuck you. But like, I think it's a compliment. So I mean, like I hear a lot of Smiths in the vocals, Like there's just something about that to me. And I hear a lot of, just kind of that sound. But then I find there's a lot of Beatles in there. And again, that's not a bit. What? JW, you don't like the Beatles?
I'm not a big Beatles fan. This guy and Caleb, they're like crazy about the Beatles. They'd have sex with John Lennon if he would have let them. Probably would have sex with his corpse if they.
Jesus. Okay. Well, Zach's not
But-
saying no, so.
We are horribly disgusting people.
I mean, I don't hate the guys or anything. They must be enthused to no end to know that you heard that in their sound, because that's probably what they were going for.
You're like, I'm mad at you, but no, but I mean, like, I hear a bunch of things. Like, I hear some Keen, I hear some Who and Floyd. I hear all kinds of things. Like, I hear lots of different elements, but you guys don't sound like any of that. It's just, there's a thing that I get sometimes that, and it's usually the kind of thing that will make me hyperfixate on a particular song or a particular album, where it's this feeling of recognizing something that I've never heard before, where it's got all these sonic elements of home, but it's not anything derivative. It's not anything, that go, oh, this is a note for note of this or a note for note of that. It's nothing like that. It's just, there's so much baked into it that sounds like, or is reminiscent of things that I love, but it creates something entirely new. And I love when I find a band that does that for me, because it's one of my favorite ways to listen to music, is that idea of just like, this is so familiar, so I mean, like, I'll be listening to like, Mrs. Moon Eyes, which now that was you had Moon Eyes on, like, that was a single, right? From like before. So you added the Mrs., I guess maybe to go with Mr. Sun. I'm not sure, but like, and that I'm hearing a lot of, like, Across the Universe, and that's sort of, again, that dreamy feel, but you guys, did you consciously set on a kind of sound? Because I know we talked about genre a little bit, this sort of dreamy, dream pop, alt kind of whatever. And, JW, you coming from like mostly a metal background, which is already a very interesting combination of things. And then, Caleb's got this singer songwriter, he's got a lot of Beatles too. I hear a lot of that in his stuff too. And some Simon and Garfunkel and Coldplay and all that. So like you guys have all these different elements and genres and vibes and feels, but when it comes together, it's this thing that is just uniquely TDP. So how much of that was a forethought? Like, this is the kind of sound that we want to make, and how much of it was just, this is what JW's bringing, this is what Zach's bringing, this is what Caleb's bringing? Like, where did the sound come from?
Well, I guess it just,
It was calculated to be that way, the way that it is now. I mean, as far as, we didn't know, once we had all gotten together, me and Zach and Caleb, exactly what direction that we were going in. But one thing that we were seeing is that the dream pop stuff that Zach had written and all that in this decade prior wasn't really, I mean, it just wasn't really flying. Some of it was, but by and large, a lot of it for this audience around here in Alabama, they just weren't getting it.
Okay.
And I was in love with the music. Shit, I'd learned like 18 original songs so that we could play a whole set of it.
Yeah.
And people who were going out to hear a particular kind of music, were like not really vibing as much as they could have been, So that was mostly a decision by Zach and Caleb, and it kind of merged styles a little bit, and Caleb got a lot of creative direction as far as how the songs were developed and stuff, and really injected his style and creativity into it. And when what Caleb and Zach had created came together, our current sound is what came out of that. And it was a conscious decision to go with almost a little bit more of like a Southern rock influence.
Southern rock, and then like an edgy outlaw country.
It's
what worked. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but I mean, in this area of Alabama, it works. People like to hear that.
Yeah.
And we all know where we came from musically, and it was all a decision we, willfully made together. So it was like, we got to do what we got to do to make and craft the sounds that people respond positively to,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. It's interesting because, it's being someone who, talks to bands and musicians from all over the world. I don't think in local and regional ways most of the time around this music because, I'm sitting here in New York and I'm listening to you guys in Muscle Shoals and going, okay, like I've heard that. And then I'm listening to Death Pigeon and, overseas, and I'm listening to, Anger Overdose not too far away. Like and I've got all these different bands that I know from all over the place. And so to me, it's kind of like, oh, just make what you want to make. And then, the audience is there from wherever, they'll just find you. But you're right. I mean, if you want to be playing out, you're not playing out to people who are listening from Wales or the UK or California. You're playing to people in Alabama. So it makes sense to me that you would try to fit the market. But what I think is interesting about the way that you've pulled it off, though, is that it doesn't sound like a sound that doesn't sound like your sound. It's still you guys. Thank you for following that sentence. I knew what I meant. But because it is still, I hear a lot of the stuff that I heard from your discography, Zach, and I hear a lot of the stuff from Caleb's, EP, and I get that sense that you're still in there. It's just you've added this seasoning that does have that Southern rock. It does have that more almond, or that, there's that grit. There's that, it's not really a twang. I don't hear that in the vocals. I don't hear anything like that, but there's a brightness to it, and the tones on the guitars, and, you've got that warmth and all of the little sonic Easter eggs that you have to have for people who are going out to a bar and they want to hear X kind of music. But I still would not define you in any one genre. Like, if you had to define what you do, like, do you have a genre that you consider yourselves to be in? Or, I mean, I know it really ultimately doesn't matter, but I'm curious if you guys have called it anything internally.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we have to go with country Southern rock, just to make it simple. But I mean, like if you're filling out paperwork, that's what we use. But yeah, I don't think we can define a true sound to it either.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think that we, even though it was a conscious decision to make this new album and moving forward, with this new interesting style of ours, even though that was a conscious decision to make that change, I still don't think that we put any type of label on it.
Not really. No.
Yeah, I mean, if it's working for the people who are coming to see you, then that's really all you need to know. Like it's not like you have to be identified by some sort of genre specifically. And I mean, like, that's a conversation that I've had with a bunch of different musicians on this show about, some people really care a lot about being in a particular genre or subgenre, and some people really don't. They could not possibly care any less. And I think, for what you do, I love that I'm hearing something that doesn't fit neatly into any particular box, but it's not like you're doing some sort of, playing Philip Glass records backwards or something where I'm like, what is this? Like, it's actual music. I know what's going on, but, you're pulling in all these different elements, and it just makes it so unique, which I always think is a good thing, as long as it's good, which it is. Like, there's good unique, and then there's just unique, and this is good unique. So, I mean, so in terms of like the songwriting process, what does that look like? Are you guys coming in, one of you or a couple of you, with, a riff or a melody or lyrics, or is this kind of sitting down and jamming and coming up with what you come up with on the fly? Like, is it a combination of things? How does the songwriting process go?
I guess the one formula that we follow is, Caleb explained this to me the other evening. We were just having a conversation about our personalities, and he said, I'm the hateful one, and he's the happy one, and I'm the one that people don't like, and he's Mr. Popular. Well, I mean, it's true, but I had him go in more in depth with that, and he's like, well, bro, you're weird and you're smart and you look dangerous because you kind of are. And I just, I played football and I'm Mr. Popular. And so when I walk into a place, hey, how's everybody doing? And you walk in like you're suspicious. And, and I do, Fugitive Recovery was a hell of a job.
I was just going to say, like, given what you used to do, I could kind of understand that tendency. Yeah.
And so I write from a place like they will make you pay. That's I wrote that one.
I could probably figure out who, like, Mr. Sun sounds like a Caleb song, whereas they will make you pay, definitely a Zach song. Like think that did you do Set a Fire too?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I know. I without even knowing you guys, like that's a very interesting. That's such an ND conversation to have, because like neurotypicals would be so offended by that, like, oh, I'm popular and you're dark, and you're like, yeah, let's talk about that more. I'm already interested too, because I'm like, I know you're not a dick, so you're not saying it to be mean, but like, what do you mean by that? But I mean, I feel like this is a good place to, and we'll talk more about songwriting as we go, but like, this is a good place to sort of sit with a little bit the fact that you guys are a band of completely neurodivergent people, like, which is not something that I was so happy to find you in the wild. Like, I really, really was. And I liked the music before I knew any of that. But I do think that there's just something where, like, your own people, and like, there's something about that where the things that light up your brains are just not like other people necessarily. And so I'm kind of like, I wonder if that's part of why I like the music so much. But, when I found that out, so like, what, if you guys care to, and you certainly don't have to, but is everybody autistic? Is it like different flavors of neurodivergent, or, okay, so everybody's on the spectrum.
Yeah.
So for you folks out there who only remember Rain Man and you think that's what autistic people are like, we're a whole other basket of fish, But okay, so was that like in the ad for the band? Like, hey, must bring guitar and autism? Like, or did you just luck out? Like, how did you guys all end up being neurodivergent in the band?
Yeah, we all just lucked out.
Wow.
Well, and then I brought it up before, just kind of as like a general hypothesis. I hope nobody hates me for this, but in order to endure the things that a musician endures and to go through the creative processes that a musician goes through, I think you have to kind of be a little bit on the spectrum somewhere.
It definitely helps at the very least.
I would even almost go so far as to say that I've never even met somebody who was truly and wholly like neurotypical, like 100%. Everybody's got their little quirks and flavors. It's just how much of that extra seasoning do you have on top, Yeah.
How neurospicy are you? Well, I mean, it's called a spectrum for a reason.
How spicy is your brain, So it just kind of worked out that way. I mean, and, a lot, like I said, a lot of people who play music anyway are already autistic, whether they want to admit that that's why they are the way that they are or not, So we were really lucky, though, that everybody that we did get was, in one form or another, somewhere on the spectrum, and then really accepting of that fact, that we're in a band with autistic people. We're all really weird. We're going to do some really weird shit from time to time, and everybody's, got enough grace to allow people their eccentricities.
Yeah.
When we play live, he has to wear sunglasses.
Yeah, I don't.
He can't do the eye contact thing.
Yep.
Caleb and I.
Greg used to do that in the beginning when we were in our old band, and he would be on stage drumming. It was just a way to, kind of is a little distance, and then nobody knows where you're. Exactly. Yeah.
And Caleb has to play barefoot.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I don't understand that part because we play in some really dirty ass places. But he pulls them Hobbit tootsies out. Just goes to town.
Caleb and I both have a thing, and this is when we found out in Nashville when I saw him do that. We got a buddy of ours who works in the music industry, and when we just up in Nashville, we stay at his house, and we were all eating, and Caleb had went in, and our buddy has nice things, lots of nice things, dishes,
Okay.
and nice cups and everything. Caleb goes in and comes back with a drink, and he's drinking out of a measuring cup. And our buddy Jacob is like, of everything in there, you chose that, didn't you? And he's like, yeah, man. And I was like, leave him alone. I do the same thing. That's the night that I learned that Caleb and I both prefer to drink out of measuring cups for whatever reason.
Well, now
My
is it
thought
because
process would be like, I don't want to dirty up a regular dish. I'm like, motherfucker, you're still dirty.
You're still dirty, yeah. No,
I was curious because we just bought new glasses here for the house, and we had a very long and intense discussion about the lip of the glass and the mouthfeel and whether it was going to be ridged or not or whatever. So like measuring cups, you don't have to worry about any of that. It's just straight and flat. And yeah, so I feel you. It's always so fun for me to talk to people where you don't have to, even if it's not the same weird stimmy shit, they've got enough of their own weird stimmy shit that they're like, yeah, sure, I'll grandfather that in. I don't know. That's fine. Your version of weird and my version of weird, not entirely the same, but weird it is and whatever. So, I mean, like in terms of, because I'm sitting here thinking like, all right, Greg and I with the band, we have our autisms are slightly different flavors. So he's like I want someone to tell me exactly what I need to do. I will keep my spreadsheets.
But would you believe there are some people out there who don't use spreadsheets recreationally? And I'm astounded at this.
And my lists and my track, and I've got everything, and I'm very organized and whatever, but please don't make me iterate ideas. And I'm the ADHD flavor combo where I'm like, oh, we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this, but I don't want to do any of the detail, like so we work very well together in that way. I'm fine with social media because I talk a lot, and like I'm comfortable with people because, well, some people, he's not, but then he'll do all the production. So like, how do you guys, because there is a lot in being in a band, being in a touring band, being in a band that is constantly playing out and meeting people, that kind of goes against the whole autistic ethos. You have to make phone calls, you have to talk to people, you have to try to schmooze people and charm people. Like, how do you guys manage that as being a totally autistic band? Like, has it been any trouble? Do you just kind of fucking do it? Like, do you have a way around it?
Yeah, given the fact that I've done this as long as I have and thrust into not only performances of huge crowds, but also the business side of it. I usually handle most of that because by now it's second nature.
Okay.
And everything that has to deal with social media and online, he has the knack for that. I know nothing about it. And so he oversees all that. And so we both share in responsibilities when it comes to the band and the label. And other than that, it's all really on that for those aspects. It just takes the two of us.
And setting a whole bunch of like alarms and calendar notifications and stuff too, because I can't remember a fucking thing.
Same.
Ever. And so yeah, we do pretty good. I mean, as far as staying organized, I can, like most of my adult life, it's a performance, and so there's shit you really don't want to do. No, I don't want to talk on the phone.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to sit and make appointments and reach out about booking shows, and don't want to have to interact with 100 different people a day on social media and stuff. But it's one of those, it's a performance you have to put on. I mean,
yeah.
It's one of those things when you look at it, you're like, well, damn, somebody's got to do this shit. Know, so
you got to want it bad enough to put in the work.
Yeah, you got to get it done. And I mean, just because I deep down into my core may not want to do something, doesn't mean it doesn't have to be done. And so
right.
That's been most of my adult life, is strapping the old mask
on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And getting it done. And you're, doing my best to pretend like I'm somebody who does not have a huge problem with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when it pays off, it pays off, and I'm glad that I did it.
Yeah.
I just don't let anything hold me back like that. and
That,
hold
but
up.
that's great though, because I mean, like, one of the things that I find I have to manage a lot, with all the different things that we do, is the burnout piece, because that's real, it's legit. And the idea that, you can be, on and just on and doing it, you're masking, you've got what you need to get done, then you go on stage and that sounds like it's more of a release for you guys than anything else, because you've got your stuff where you need it, you've got your bare feet and your shades, and you're good to go, and so you can just be in your element there. But like that, I imagine, at the level that you guys, have been at, especially you, Zach, doing this for so long on such like a big scale, you know, that strikes me as a real possibility, that you guys could just burn out at some point. Like, have you come up on that at any point, where you're in sensory overload, or you can't mask in a given day or a given week or a given month, and you take a little break, or you push through anyway, it sounds like?
Musically, yeah, we'll push through. Everything else though, it'll come crashing down.
Okay.
And we'll have that burnout.
That's why we work so well together, is because we understand that happens. It's like in private and together, we can be burned out. There's no airs that you have to put on for me. And then that I think helps give us the space that we need to keep the show going when it's time. To be on stage and to put on the performances, because we don't have to spend all the non-stage time pretending to be people that we're not.
Exactly. And I mean, guys, just for the people watching here, because I mean, I realize we're doing that thing like where the language that twins speak to each other, and but like making sure everybody who's maybe, neurotypical and watching is kind of catching exactly what we're talking about. Being autistic, a lot of times, you're in situations where the world is built around neurotypical people. I mean, a lot of creative people are neurodivergent, whether that's autistic, ADHD, ODD, whatever, like the alphabet soup that you're going to go find in the DSM. But like, a lot of what's expected socially is based around neurotypical things, making eye contact and, making phone calls and having these social conversations that are of a particular sort, where you're not just talking about trains for 4 hours straight, whatever, and like you care about the other person and what they have to say. And there is a thing that autistic people do called masking. It's not, masking. It's this idea of just the face that you put on socially to interact with the world, where, you're kind of, putting your autism away for a little while, or at least as much of it as you can manage. And the thing is that it's handy, but it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And so what I love about what Zach and JW are saying right now is this idea that because they're a fully neurodivergent band and everybody gets it, everybody gets, having to wear that mask, socially, a lot of the rest of the time or whatever, because they all understand it, when they're together, they can just be however the fuck they are, and so you guys don't have that added pressure of, okay, now I got to look normal for the bass player, it's like the bass player's over there, spinning the bass around or whatever, like, stimming on the strings or whatever, like he gets it too. So, it's fully safe that way. And I think that's so important. It's so important to have as many oases of neurodivergence as you can in life, because it's exhausting to try and seem normal to people who don't understand that being autistic isn't being abnormal. It's just like, what do they say? It's not a processing error. It's a completely different operating system, like you're just, it's a whole other thing, and I know a lot of people hear autism and they do think, Rain Man or, puzzle pieces and all this shit that I hate, and it's like, that's not what it is. It's so many people that I talk to, when I find out that they're also autistic, because you get that little like, you look like a measuring cup kind of guy. And like, you get that sense, not at all what people would think, I mean, like if we hadn't mentioned being autistic on this show, I don't think anybody watching would be like, those guys certainly seem autistic. She seemed like, I tell people, I mean, that was one of the things when I first interacted with you guys directly on Facebook, I guess it was mostly you, JW, that, you had posted something And then I posted something in Band Together saying like, yeah, you know, as a neurodivergent person myself, like I find this band really awesome. I love what they're doing. I love that the way that they're bringing awareness, but not in like this, you know, fly a banner, march for freedom kind of way, but just like, hey, you know, we exist, we're here, we're just letting our freak flag fly, and we are who we are, and like we're not who you think we are, kind of way. And people were like, you're what? You're autistic? You're what? Like nobody ever believes it about me because I never fucking shut up. And like, you know, I talk to people all the time. That's basically my job. And it's like, yeah, but there's all this other stuff. You know, I finish an interview, I'm exhausted, you know, because like I'm on right now, and like I'm myself, absolutely, but I'm doing what I need to do, and then I'm gonna have to like go into my hole for a little while, just kind of decompress and all this other stuff. So I mean, I think it's crucial that, you know, you guys are kind of another autistic gateway drug where like people will sit down, just listen to the music and love it, and then find out about the band and be like, oh no shit, you know, these are autistic people. That's not what I thought autistic people looked like or did or acted like. Or they have bands, they go on tours, they go out and play in bars, they're, you know, doing interviews. So I love that. I love that we're able to kind of blow open all of the bullshit around it, you know, these stereotypes and the, you know, and I think a lot of people, it's not even malicious. It's just a lack of understanding, you know? And I also think it's cool that even the conversation that you and Caleb had, it's not like, you know, you're autistic, everybody's then automatically the same. You're one version of autistic, he's another version. Like you guys are all, so I'm happy to hear that you are all able to find ways to cover everything you need to cover that aren't completely busting you, and that being together, you are able to kind of let yourselves decompress and regroup and get your shit together and unmask, and then come back and do what you got to do when you're around the normies or whatever. So
I can't imagine it working out like with another group of people, really. You know, and I've played with so many people and had to pretend, you know, so much, and just being able to chill out is, you know, something I've didn't get until I was 32. So
I mean, we give each other welfare checks during the week. You know, hey, how you doing? You know, randomly stop by and say hi, and you know, stuff like that. And then when we get together on the weekends to do our thing, you know, we'll have a brief conversation at the very beginning, just to make sure everybody's all right. And then if we all just give a sigh and roll our eyes, then we know, all right, we're all feeling overwhelmed. Let's just play some music. You know, and we have our ways of communicating with each other now. From being around each other so often.
Mostly grunts and clicks.
Grunts and clicks. So we have our ways. We talk to each other without using our voices.
But that's it though, right? I mean, like even jokingly, there's so much support and comfort and relief in finding other people who get it. You know, where you do, because I've been in those bands too, where it's like they do not understand what the fuck my brain is doing at any given time. They do not understand why I can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, but then I have to make a phone call to a venue owner and I'm in a cold sweat. Like they do not understand. They don't understand why, like I have to have this note this way in this song because otherwise it's just wrong. Like it's just wrong, and it's not even the wrong note, it's just not the right note, you know. It's like it's the wrong, and you guys are laughing, and I think it's because you get that too. It's all this weird little shit. But the thing that I think a lot of people might not realize is that is some of the stuff that makes the best music and the best art and the best bunny ears and the best, you know, just it because there is it's weird to find hyper focus and hyper fixations and stims as a kind of passion, but they are, right? And when you've focused that on making music or art or literature or whatever, and it has to be this way, and that's not even in like a compulsive kind of way necessarily. It's just your brain goes, no, this part won't light up if that doesn't happen. And this part won't light up if that doesn't happen. And then when you put all those things together, you know, so many creative people they think Einstein was autistic. They think, I mean, there's so many people that, going back and looking in retrospect, that have been in these hugely creative and brilliant fields. Hello, autistic, but that's not what was known at the time. So like,
Right.
I'm so happy that you guys have found that, where you have that solace of just being able to be yourselves in the interstitials, where you don't have to do and perform, because guys, if you think being on stage is exhausting, try being autistic in the real world. You're performing all the time. Like, that's just the way that it is. So, I mean, are there any elements of it that make it more difficult? Like, do you guys just ever, somebody's stim just rubs the other person's neurochemistry the wrong way and they can't have it? Do you guys ever have like times where you can't communicate with each other? Is there any downside to everybody being ND in the band?
Not yet.
Not yet, no.
Great. Okay, cool. Very cool.
I do have me personally, I deal with a lot of feelings of guilt. And it's always been that way.
Okay.
And so I usually end up feeling guiltier that someone is mad at me when they're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because I spent all of my time with these guys, every now and then I got to say, hey, everybody okay with me? Is there something you talk about? I'm like, no, it was fine.
I don't know what that
is. In any situation, I think that's just one of my personal battles.
Yeah.
Other than that, no, none of us have punched anyone yet, so.
Kudos. Huzzah. Good for you. That's the way to go. No, but I mean,
365 days punch free.
Yeah, punch free.
You should have a sign up in the rehearsal space, like just, right, like Homer. Oh, yeah. But I mean, I think too that it's, to get back a little bit more specifically into the music, I do think that there is a way in which, being autistic and being a musician, you are going to land on certain things that maybe other musicians might not. So like, for example, I was listening to, Mr. Sun. So like, I mean, you guys only have the, 7 or 8 songs on Spotify. So I figure we could touch on them, for TDP specifically. I mean, again, Zach's catalog is huge, pardon the expression, but I mean, like if you go back and you want to listen to lots of solo stuff, or whatever, or things that are just Zach centric, you can certainly go on the website and do that. But, as a label now, you guys have Domogalla Records, and you've got artists there. And I've noticed that even within that, there are a lot of similarities sonically, but like when you guys are putting together like a Mr. Sun, where did that start? Where was that? Was that the riff? Was it, because your lyrics are also pretty, well, depending on who's writing it, your lyrics, Zach, you have a lot of very intense, I mean, you have certain themes in your, even like back catalog. There's a lot of stuff about loss and suicidal ideation or actual suicide and losing people. And like, there's, I get the sense you've been through a lot of shit, unless you're just really good at writing fiction, which I don't think it is, but
everything that you've heard that I've written is based on truth and experiences that I've had.
Okay. So guys, I'm going to implore you then to go listen to like a song called Extension Cord, for example, and then get a little window into some of the stuff that, Zach has been through, but so I do get those themes of, loss and reaching out. Then there are some songs in there that are definitely more angry. You have some political stuff. You have some stuff that's very upbeat. And I think it's kind of neat that you and Caleb are, black part of the cookie, white part of the cookieing each other, where you've got that mix. But so Roses fascinated me, even the first version that I heard, the original, because lyrically and musically, they're so different from each other. You're juxtaposing these intense, and as JW said, Rorschach-y kind of lyrics where you can take them in a bunch of different ways, but there is an idea of processing a loss or a goodbye or a separation or a grief of some kind. But the music is very cheerful in its way. Yeah. So talk to me about that. How did that one come together in the new version, at least?
Gosh, I was still in high school when I wrote that, and it's about loss. For me, a very specific loss. It was more of me saying goodbye to an idea than a person.
Mm-hmm.
I was in love with someone, and I had to let go of that.
Mm.
And so that metaphorical death was
Yeah.
the death of my feelings.
Yeah.
That makes
No,
sense.
it makes 1,000% sense. Like I think everybody's felt that, you know, like or even if it's not falling in love, but the idea of losing not the thing, but the illusion of having had the thing, you know,
Yeah.
that, or, that idea of just something that you have to move on from, but
Yeah.
it's beautiful and it's dark and it's intense. And so when you wrote that, you know, and you decided, even the original version, it's not like this heavy plodding funereal instrumentation on that. So like, was that the choice to kind of balance the intensity of the lyrics with a different kind of instrumentation, or is that just what fell out of your brain? And then how did you guys decide to redo it with the version that we just heard?
Well, I always, I think it's my writing process. I like to make fun and interesting sounding music.
Mhm.
Kind of poppy, because I do like, dream pop and stuff like that. So I use a
Yeah.
lot of those chords, and then I write later, the lyrics.
Okay.
And so they've always kind of been like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of my really dark songs, you're listening and you're like, oh, this song's really cool.
Yeah.
You listen to it a few times and then you really digest the lyrics and you're like,
Oh yeah.
oh fuck.
Yeah.
You know?
But I love that, though. I love that it sneaks up on you in that way, because it gives the listener options. First of all, they could just go and enjoy that. They don't have to understand the super intensity of what you're actually writing about, but for me, when I listen very intently. Like I'm studying the band when I'm
Yeah.
researching for the show. And so I'm listening to these lyrics, and I mean, again, like Extension Cord, and I'm like, holy fuck, like just the imagery in that is like, but the song is not that way, so I mean, it's such an interesting, as I said, juxtaposition. So you are always writing instrumentation first. You're always writing, a riff or a melody line or whatever, and then the lyrics always come after.
Yeah, or I write them separately. So sometimes the lyrics might come, first, and then they sit back for a while. And but what I do is when I write the music for a song, I'll have a specific feeling.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
A good day, bad day, a day that I've reflected on the past, whatever, and I'll try to catch that feeling.
Yeah.
In what I'm, playing on the guitar.
Yeah.
And like sometimes I don't know, I just do weird shit. And sometimes I'll just take my shirt off and lay down and put my guitar on my chest and like just go by the feeling and vibration, or play to a corner in my studio and hear it bounce back behind me. I just do weird shit.
No,
But,
that doesn't seem weird to me, but consider the source. Like, I'm also pretty weird, so it probably is weird. It just doesn't seem weird to me. But yeah, you're experiencing it in a different way, and you're using all your senses, which I don't think that's a bad thing for making music, frankly. But okay, but so sometimes then you will write lyrics, but you don't necessarily know what song they're for.
Yeah, most of the time it doesn't happen that way, but sometimes I'll come up with an idea, a phrase, or something I feel I want to get off my chest, and I'll jot it down. And then I'll write, and then like I said, I'll just pick up a guitar and or whatever. I got to play like 8 instruments, maybe 9. So whatever I'm feeling, and I get that feeling, musically, I find that feeling, and then I'll lay back and listen to it and say, now, what is it that I want to say? What's been on my chest lately? What and then that's, I guess, it's a very long way to sort through my own stuff, emotional distress.
Mm-hmm. No, but I find it also kind of neat. What am I, like 100 years old? But I find it cool that in some of your songs and especially in your solo stuff, but you'll have a like a lyrical refrain, something that you'll repeat, psych, 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 psychosomatic, or, where did you go? I don't know. Like, and it's just, it becomes almost like a mantra, the way that it's, and I know that lyrics will repeat. I understand that, you have a chorus, you have a thing you want to keep bringing back, that kind of thing, but it's different than that. It's this idea of, kind of hitting a thought, punching a thought over and over and over again. And a lot of times I would notice when I was listening to the music, when you're doing that lyrically, it really does deepen the feeling that you've picked to make us feel with that song, where it's like, I'm hearing that phrase over and over again. And I'm, the more I hear you say it, the more it's affecting me in terms of what lyrically is going on in the bigger picture. And I love that. It's almost like a mini hyper focus, just lyrically for a little bit. So, I mean, but how do you balance that? Like, so JW, you're not writing anything, but I'm assuming, you're writing your drum parts, do you ever start off a song where you've just got a beat, you've got a riff, you've got a tempo, because the drums are a huge part of the music. So, I mean, does it ever start with the rhythm like that? Or is it always something that, you've had brought to you?
Yeah, usually they bring to me at least the rough outline.
Okay.
And then we'll put some beats to it and kind of see where it evolves from there.
Okay.
But there's always a product and that they have had initially in their minds that they bring to me after, they put it to the guitar. So I don't really have a whole lot to do with the initial crafting of the song, but I do help kind of shape where it goes after that.
I would have to think so too, because you also do, a decent bit of like little breaks, little surprises, tiny breakdowns, like things in there that I would think would have to come mostly from the drums, because it's a very percussive moment in there, even if people don't think about the fact that silences are percussive too, but they are, it's another beat that you're just not hearing anything in that moment, but it makes you listen, it makes you pay attention. So, especially being married to a drummer, I'm always paying attention to that. And I think that it's, to have drums that drive songs that are so changeable, even within the song sometimes, like you guys do, because your songs are not linear all the time. Sometimes it's basically the same musical thought from the beginning to the end where you're not changing it too much, but sometimes you are. And so like that, the drums have a lot to do with that. So even if you're not really writing it, I got to think you have more input than maybe you feel like you do, because I love when I notice the drums, but it's not because I'm like, dude, get some fucking gobos, like calm down. Like sometimes you notice drums because people are overplaying. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about intricacy. I'm talking about like on Mr. Sun, you have that. I couldn't figure out if it was like a clap or a snap or there's that in the back. Like it's a lot, not the shaker, but you have another percussion bit in there that doesn't sound like a drum necessarily. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The rim shot.
Yeah, it's a rim shot.
So it's a rim shot, and
Okay.
On the production side, I teamed that up with a tambourine hit.
Okay. You sneaky bastard.
So I can't necessarily replicate that exact sound per se, but
thanks.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from there.
Okay. When you're putting together an album where half of them are, Zach, dangerous, fugitive, stealing person, deep stewing, whatever. And then you've got Caleb, who's, I guess, like, I think of it as like, what was that? You're probably too young for it, but there was like a series of books or something that it was all like Mr. This and Mr. That, and they were all these little like blobby figures, and it was like Mr. Sunshine and Mr. Yeah, so like I'm thinking of you guys that way based on what Caleb said, but like
the Garbage Pail Kids.
No, but that was a different. But you know what I'm talking about. But I don't remember what it's called. It's like it was like a series, and it was like Mr. This and Miss That, and like they were just like these very. It was like a noun or an emotion or something, and they were very basic, but like for some reason it was like hugely popular at the time. Greg is probably putting a little crawl underneath it with the name of it right now at this point. But like, so how do you do that? How do you balance? I mean, I know some of it is not as difficult because, as we've said, even though lyrically, Zach, you're more intense than what Jacob, rather, I keep calling him Jacob because you mentioned Jacob. I guess that was the dude with the measuring cup house, but like Caleb's stuff being more just like throughout. It's brighter, it's more cheerful, it's less intense generally. I mean, like you guys are, I mean, it seems like you've almost alternated. If I'm guessing who did what song on, you know, which songs on the album correctly, it seems like you guys mostly alternated, you know, from a Caleb to a Zach and back and forth. Like, but is that part of the process of putting the album together, you know, of just like, okay, you know, because you released everything as singles though, right? They were like, everything on Spotify is a single.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's part of my process.
Okay.
There's a reason why we did that. But yeah, I had written Moon Eyes.
Right.
Because that's another side of my solo stuff. I do like a lot of, you know, acoustic folky type stuff as well.
Yeah.
I usually keep that to myself. Only release a few of those songs, or they start out that way and then they turn into, I layer them with electric, you know, and then I beef them up a bit. But so I did Moon Eyes, and then that ended up being considered for another Grammy. So I got remastered and re-released through Sony for that purpose.
Okay.
And that didn't pan out as well. It was just a consideration. So we got the song, and then I opened it back up in the studio, and I thought, okay, we'll keep this, and we'll make it part of the new thing. And Caleb listened to it, and he's like, "Mrs. Moon Eyes, okay, I'm gonna write a song called Mr. Sun."
Okay.
So we did, and you know, and then so if you listen to the vocal melody of Mrs. Moon Eyes, there's like a call and response in Mr. Sun where I come in and sing that one part. He wrote all that.
Oh, okay.
That was him.
Okay.
He came up with that. And so that call and response thing. Excuse me.
It's okay.
And I think that's like the best way to describe how we work is that call and response thing. And we do that a lot musically. That's just the best representation of it.
That's very cool. No, that's very cool because it does make listening to your stuff an additional form of interesting, you know, because it's not, look, if what you guys were doing was so far afield from each other, it would be too much. You know, it would be too like, you know, like a collab between like Marilyn Manson and Taylor Swift. Like nobody wants to listen to that album, you know, like, at least I don't. Yeah. There are probably people in the chat going, I want to hear that one. But like, you know, that would not, for me at least, work. It's not like that. It's just, I think it's interesting because, you know, Caleb's lyrics. Now, is Caleb, he's writing his own lyrics, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay. So the songs that are his, and the songs that are yours, and, you know, not never the twain shall meet, but the twain will kind of meet in the middle. But like, so you guys do fit together. You know, it works that all of these things do sound like a TDP. You know, it's not like I'm sitting there going like, okay, this is something that Zach pulled from an old album, and then like this is a Caleb song, which sounds like TDP to me, or vice versa. You know, and I find that fascinating that you guys have such different aesthetics, but it still manages to come together in a way that's cohesive, and it works, as opposed to being like super, super jarring. So in terms of like your label, because we mentioned it a little bit ago, you know, Domogalla Records, you've got obviously Caleb's solo stuff is on that. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm presuming, Zach, that you're putting out your stuff such as you do on that. But then you also have Douglas, right?
Yeah.
And Daniel, I think.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot of songs from your back catalog that feature Robert Dooley.
Yeah.
And he's on there too. So like, what are they, you know, because you two run the label. So feel free, JW, to jump in here and say whatever you want. But like, what is the goal for the label? obviously besides getting people's music out there, are you looking for specific kinds of artists? Is it just people that light up your brains musically, or like what's the plan for that?
Yeah, it's each artist has something to them that we like, whether it be an artistic potential, or someone that we believe in that we could push on to bigger and better things.
Mm.
I was so oh gosh, when I signed with Marcy Playground's record label, I was on their label and I was managed by, I'm not going to say their name, but anyone who does their research could see that from which
Okay.
company I'm talking about, and I was horribly mismanaged.
Mm.
They just about ruined me. And so I took all the knowledge and left that situation. And Marcy Playground had nothing to do with it. They're amazing people and really good friends of mine.
Yeah.
It was the other side, the side that they had no control.
Right.
The business side.
Right.
But I took all of that knowledge and applied it into my own label, which now we both are owners. And like with Daniel, he's also autistic, and he lives in Tuscaloosa area here in Alabama, somewhere down there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had heard The Diamond in the Rough, he was just playing guitar and singing. And I thought, if I were to produce this, polish it up a little bit, I think it could really do something.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we take on a client, we look or bring on an artist as, an artist. However, what we try to do is we try to find people that we believe in, and then we help them, produce them. But as we go along, we teach them. We teach them how to do all this on their own. So we don't do contracts. We just say, hey, we like you. Let's see what we can do.
Cool.
And every step that they take with us, we show them how we're doing it.
That's
so
great.
Then they learn some about how to produce their own music. They learn the importance of being protected by a PRO like BMI or ASCAP. They learn how to make sure that they're collecting all of their royalties from various platforms. They're making sure how to not, trying to teach them how to not get burned by other people. So that's kind of the goal with that. And so we're, we're kind of picky and selective, but it's, we run into people that we believe have an immense amount of talent, and they may not necessarily have the means to push it, or, and so we try to help with that.
But that's wonderful, because first what you're doing is you're giving them what you had without the hard won lesson part of it. Like the I got run through the mill, but I'm going to take what I learned, through that with me, and then you're teaching them without making them suffer in the process, which is really nice. But it's also I've said it before, it is astounding to me that more people don't understand how critical production is in music. You can have an album that is sort of objectively awful, but if it's produced brilliantly, it will sound way better than it actually is. And you can have an album that is brilliant and it's terribly produced and it's going to sound like shit and people aren't going to resonate with it. So it's hugely important to have people, and even in your own music, I've watched you do that through the discography. I've watched you take, like, again, I keep mentioning self-destruction, but like I was struck specifically with that song by how you changed it, and they're all well produced, but produced very differently from version to version, and it points up how critical that aspect of things are. And I think that, to have somebody, two people running a label where they want to teach that, among other things, to the people that they're working with, that's tremendous, because you've enabled them to take control of their own musical future that way, and they're going to want to stay with you without a contract just because you're doing what you're doing, but that even if for some reason they decided to move on and you guys were like, yeah, cool, whatever, they know now what they need to know. Like that's wonderful. That's so nice that you guys are doing that, because so many people want to gatekeep that kind of information, and make it such that you have to, come to me, the Great Wizard of Oz, for this kind of knowledge and whatever. And you're like, no, here you go. Here's how you do it, like that. So, I mean, that's tremendous to me. And I think that I wish more people would approach it that way. But I mean, are you looking to take on more people, or because you are so selective, it's kind of just, as you find them, you'll find them, but you're not. JW, you're nodding. You could say something too, buddy.
I mean, if they come along, they come along. There was a point in which we were more actively seeking these people out, but as our own business gets more demanding, our time is so limited because of our own programs and our own shows. So, we've got a few good people right now that we're working with, and if someone comes along, they come along. I can't say that I'm, actively seeking more people out, because I'm already drowning, up beyond eyeballs and shit to do. But we do have some really good people.
Yeah, that's the other thing that we haven't talked about is all the band members are amazing sessions players. So they'll go out and play with some of the bigger names around here.
We get rented out.
Yeah.
So Caleb.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're busy doing that kind of stuff too. So.
Yeah. Well, that's, you could be locked into something for, a week or two or whatever. If it's like something bigger, you're on. That's a huge time commitment right there, because it's not up to you. If your session in the studio, you're just at the mercy of whoever's in there doing the work. So, I mean, that is a huge other element on top of a working band that is prolific and a label to also be doing. So, yeah, it doesn't sound like you need to be busier than you already are. I think you're probably full up, but okay. So, I just wanted to touch on a couple of other songs before we start to wrap up here. So, I mean, again, I mentioned it earlier, but October Wind, just, I love that. It's so beautiful, and I'm listening to it and I'm getting a little tiny bit of that Free Fallin' vibe that I love so much, but I mean, that was I'm assuming that was you. I think we might have asked you that already. Was that Caleb?
That was Caleb.
Oh, Caleb stumped me. Look at that. Okay, so do you know enough about it to speak to it, or would we have to track Caleb down somewhere at some point and get just in terms of his process on that one?
Yeah, okay, so it was 6 Feet Away was the first song he ever wrote. And then I believe following that was October Wind.
First song he ever wrote ever, or for you guys? Okay, wow.
First song he wrote ever. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was about when COVID hit.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah.
Yeah. So me being the dark person that I am, I'm like 6 feet away. Okay, it's about someone who probably died, right?
I thought the same thing too. 6 feet in the ground.
Yeah.
And
usually that's under, but yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's about COVID. And I was like, your own song is not about COVID.
Well, but I mean, if you listen to the lyrics, which you guys might want to do, he says something like, all those thousands of miles aren't as far as 6 feet away. Like, it's clearly he's like meeting somebody who's not actually dead at the time. Although I suppose if you want to be super dark and fugitive recoveryist about it, you could kind of take it that way.
Yeah.
But I love that you both did that. You're like,
yeah.
Dead
but yeah, October Wind is just Caleb, he just belongs with a guitar in his hands. It's just what he was. Some people are just born to do a certain thing, and when he can go out of town and walk into a restaurant, a bar, a venue, and just walk in and no one will know him, and they'll look at him and be like, "That dude plays guitar." Like that's
oh wow.
He just has that aura about him. But what people don't know is he's college educated, and he actually quit college because of what we have going on. so, and he played football and all that, but he's actually, kind of a farm boy. He's been raising cattle and had, lived on a farm and a rural area and, connected with the old school Alabama way,
Okay.
and so that's kind of where that song comes from.
Okay. Wow. All right. That's and is that new? Like, is he new to the area?
No,
Okay.
he's been around. It's just the side of him that a lot of people don't get to see.
I see. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because he was actually had I believe he had a scholarship to play football. Like he was well known for all those, athletic and jock kind of things. But,
Okay.
once you get close to him and learn more about how he grew up, it's very different.
I'm trying to reconcile being autistic and being into like the jock football. Like I think I know that must happen more often than I think, but it's not usually like a combination that I find in nature, So that's fascinating too. He seems to have a lot of different facets to him then, he's got
I think in his situation, he felt that it was what was demanded of him.
I see. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay. That was kind of his mask. So, okay. I gotcha. Okay. So, all right. So, yeah, those two are great. And again, I mentioned Set a Fire. Like, how did you write that one? Because and that's you, right?
Yeah, that is me.
Okay. Yeah. That's, do you know that song Season of the Witch by Donovan? Do you know that song? That was the a little like flashes of the vibe that I got from that one. It's cooler than that by a lot, but I love that sort of because there's something about it that's more interesting than a song like that is usually supposed to be according to the radio, and I can't articulate it better than that. It's like there's a story to the music that is more interesting than what you necessarily had to do there, and I can't really explain that better, but I mean it in a good way. So like, what was did that one come quickly? Do most of these come quickly to you? Or are they like what about that one, writing that one?
The average is about 3 days.
Okay, so yes.
Burn and Red, White, and Blue I wrote in like 10 minutes.
Okay.
Roses took me 6 years.
Okay.
Is the average? Go ahead. What?
I was just going to say, do you ascribe that to anything in particular? Like, is it, I'm just thinking lyrically, is it that one was more personal or complex than another? Or is it just that's the way the songs shake out, or like why something
it usually shakes out. The average is about 3 days. With Roses, it was so deeply emotional.
Yeah.
That I couldn't quite articulate it properly. And so it was a very, very long stretch.
Yeah.
And I would pull it out and work on it just a little bit at a time. And then when I got it, feeling too much, I put it aside. And that's why that took so long. Now, Red, White, and Blue, which you recognize from the Ode to Nothing.
Yeah.
Anywhere's Better Than Here. And Burn. Well, okay, so Set a Fire and Burn are the same song.
Right.
So I'm 38. I was 17 years old when 9/11 happened, and we were all ushered into the library, and we saw our own American people going through. I'm a very patriotic person, and the town that I grew up in, it was 1 square mile surrounded by 164 miles of military base. Kind of close to Area 51 in Nevada, and so we're all like-minded, very patriotic people, and we saw that. And when you're 17 and 18 years old, you know what's going on, and a lot of my very close friends joined the service, and went over, and they were in Iraq and Afghanistan. And very, very good friend of mine. Very, very, what an amazing person this man was. he was killed over there.
Mm.
So we all watched what happened in 9/11, and that's set a fire. That's what that's about.
Yeah.
And then Red, White, and Blue followed shortly after when I got a phone call that he was killed in action. So those songs kind of go together.
Yeah. 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 No, and I mean that you know, Red, White, and Blue, very intense again. You know, and I appreciate that so much, that lyrically, you know, whether it's one of yours or one of Caleb's, but just in general, that you guys really have something to say. You know, you're writing music that has a point. It has something to say. And I mean, it could be lighthearted and beautiful and romantic in a ballad, or it could be something really intense about grief, or something like 9/11, or losing someone, you know, in war. But there's always meaning. There's always depth. You know, it's just different kinds. And I so appreciate that as a singer and a writer, you know, that, you know, you can enjoy stuff that doesn't have much in the way of lyrical content, but I think you're always going to connect to things differently when it does, you know, and just you have in your whole discography, as we mentioned earlier, there's just so much that you're clearly processing when you're writing. You know, there's so much in your lyrics. There's so much loss, and you do have some songs that I would consider to be more angry, you know, things that are, you know, where I get the sense that, you know, it's kind of like you were wronged in some way, or people, you know, did something that they shouldn't have done, and then they found out the hard way that didn't pay out too well for them, or whatever, you know. So I just appreciate, you know, and like Sink or Swim too, same thing. Was that you?
Caleb and I came together on that one.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the music more so was me, and the lyrics were more so him.
Huh.
Because we were both tooling around with lyrics. It's our recording process. So all of those songs, and we had a show that we had to play in Nashville, and we had already made the switch over to the new sound, but we had
Right.
nothing recorded.
Okay.
And so we needed to get all that out. And so we recorded 7 songs in 5 days.
Jesus.
And
Okay.
through 6 of them.
I love JW's face. He's like, yeah, we did.
Yeah. It was just like all right, guys, we got to get this done. Let's throw it out. And
Jesus.
I think 2 of them weren't even written yet. And Sink or Swim was one of them. Like we didn't even touch on that. I was just like, we need another song. And I was like, I came up with this riff by accident the other day.
Okay.
You know, and I have some lyrics in this direction, but I think that we could do this song and it could end up on this album, but we only have like 20 minutes to do it. So let's get it done.
No way. No way.
That's how we do it. And Caleb was like, hang on a second. He pulls out his notebook and he's like, well, what about these lyrics? And I was like, all right, you know what? It's like 90% there. Let's start recording it. And got it done.
That's insane to me. Okay, because I'm playing the song in my head right now. First of all, that song has one of my favorite lyrics of anything that I heard in the whole discography, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's something like, you know, they told you that you're smart, so you think you always have the upper hand, but you know, really you don't understand. And like I know those people. And I know that person intimately, and I know that feeling of just like who you're talking to, who you're talking about. And so lyrically that song is so great, and it's so complex and intricate. But musically, that is one of the most changeable, variable songs that you guys put together. I mean, that was the one I was thinking of, where I heard some Pinball Wizard, I heard some Floyd, I heard some, you know, Freebird, I heard some, like, that song is all in a great way all over the place. And you're telling me that one came together like because you just needed another shit. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I would not have guessed that at all, but I'm very impressed. You guys got to listen to. I'm sure Greg is playing it now, but you guys have to listen to that one because it's just there's so much going on in there, and like every time I think I've got a handle on it, you know, even at the beginning, there's like that quick, very affected, jangly kind of guitar, and then immediately you've changed into a buzzier, bigger sound, and like you move and you move and you move and like from moment to moment in that song, it's not staying in one place. And I like that seems like something that would have taken a very long time to craft and not be chaotic. But okay, I guess not.
I mean, we wrote it as we were recording the other songs. Yeah. But we work like that. That's how we usually do it. Okay. You know, and since we've gone back and we've remastered everything and you know, re-released it on Spotify and everything. But those, we did all that in 5 days. And one of the things that we really like is how organic, you know, our sound is. And one of the ways that we do that is we don't record the same way that we play live. We'll play it live first in most cases, or in that one case, in a few other cases, we write it in the studio. Yeah. As we're writing and recording, or you know, something else, you know, off to the side, we're also doing this. Then we'll bring it to everybody and be like, oh, we have another song. It's done. It's produced. It's mastered. Now let's learn it.
Jesus. Okay.
But one of the things that makes our sound so organic is we all come together with an understanding that the band as a whole is what it takes. There's no egos. There's no one who's like, well, it has to be this way. It has to be that way. Yeah. And we all we want the song itself to be amazing. Yeah. We don't care about the riff or the vocal line. I mean, we do, but you get what I'm saying.
No, but yeah, it's not like you're just waiting to get to the chorus or you're like, oh, this is the good part of the song. Like the whole song has to work. Yeah, I got you.
Right. And so once, you know, now we have that amongst ourselves. And so that's really all we need. And then we'll go to the studio and we'll say, okay, well, you know, live, we usually do this for 6 bars or 8 bars. But, you know, if we want to cut it down, so why don't we just do that 4 bars? Or, you know what, we haven't written a solo for it yet, but let's just assume it'll be about this long. And then we'll record it. And then whatever we're missing, we'll write to it kind of as we go along. And it's a fairly quick process. And it helps keep it organic. And so we'll have conversations and we start. And we'll leave those conversations in the very beginning or whichever song we clap on. It was a perfect run.
That's October Wind. Yeah, I love that. You guys applaud at the end. Yeah. Yeah,
and it was just, and why cut that out? It's us being us. And, you know.
I love it though. I love it. And at the beginning of Mr. Sun, you guys talk too. And I that reminds me of like the beat, you know, sorry, JW, but that reminds me how the Beatles used to, you know, leave in that stuff sometimes too. You're just like, damn it with the fucking Beatles. But like, I think there's a lot of personality in that, you know, and it makes it feel more like you're sitting in a coffee house watching it too, as opposed to just sitting at home listening. So I love all that. I love that little like, at the end. It was very cute. So, okay. So that was because just the whole thing came out exactly the way you wanted it and you guys were just excited about it.
First time through.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I love it.
Right, we really don't spend.
That's impressive.
We don't spend a lot of time in the studio. You know, these guys are sessions players, so they're really good. Yeah. And I've been on the producing end for so many years and an engineer for so many years. Yeah. It's like, hey, you know, let's just make it feel good and record it. And Caleb taught me a lot about it's okay to sound a little out of tune. Which, you know, because everything that I recorded previously, it always had to be just as perfect as I could make it. But he's like, you know, why don't you just let it flow? And if it's a little off, it's a little off, you know, and watching him do that, it helped me a lot in my process. I'm like, you know what, that's right. Nothing has to be perfect 100% of the time. And so he helped me get over that hurdle. And so now we're just like, hey, does this sound good? Does it sound right? Yeah.
Well, that's because you could stay in the studio forever. You could always hear something that, and I mean, the thing is that what I find impressive is that, when you were saying that, what immediately jumped to mind was my, the idea, when I interviewed Trickshot, they talked about this idea of the human element in the music, the idea that, when you play out live, nobody expects to see a perfect performance. Nobody is looking for that. It's live music. That's what it is. It's ephemeral. It's going to be different every time, and you're going to hit bum notes and you're going to drop a stick and you're going to whatever. And that's part of it. That's part of the whole experience, and it's fine and it's good. But in the studio, people generally try to avoid that. And I think that there's an uncanny valley that people can fall into there, where they've sanitized their music to a point where it's antiseptic, and
Yeah.
you never did that. I never heard any of that in any of your original standard produced studio stuff. So you definitely didn't do that, which is great. But I've heard a lot of artists where, Sheryl Crow, Ani DeFranco, like two that immediately leap to mind. I have no interest in listening to their recordings, but I will watch live stuff because they're so much more interesting. There's more texture. There's more, humanity in there. There's just more personality in it, and so like for you guys, you seem to have been able to strike that balance of getting both. But the music does feel very, I don't know how to say this without it feels very extemporaneous, but not in a way that's chaotic or unplanned or unprofessional. You guys sound like you just, got off the road, came in, sat down in the studio, and were like, yeah, let's just lay this one down. And it's very cool and confident and casual, but it's done very well. And like that's a level that I think a lot of people aspire to. And it's hard. You have to have session musician expertise. You have to have production end expertise. You have to have years in the business where like, okay, that's the ear candy. That's not, we can keep that. That's, a little bit off, maybe, but in a way that adds character versus like fucks up the whole chorus, kind of thing. There's so much, primary process baked into that you're not even thinking about because it's something you guys have all been doing for so long. And I think that kind of, automaticity to it is that's hard to come by. I don't think most people could lay down 7 songs in 5 days like this and have them come out like that. I just really don't. I really, really don't. So, I mean, it's a testament to what you're all bringing. And I just to kind of wrap up on that thought, that about there not being any egos, about there not being, like I've said this before, there are some bands where they're named after a person, and then that person is like the big fucking muckety muck in the band. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, you guys can say what you want, but ultimately it's I don't get any of that from you guys. I don't get like, oh, well, because JW's not sitting down and writing in the same way that Caleb and Zach are, that, JW's any less than. I don't get any of that. And that's as it should be, because you guys would not be your band if it weren't for all of you doing exactly what you do. So I love that I don't think a lot of autistic people truck with that shit anyway. Like, who gives a fuck about any of it? It doesn't mean anything. It's so stupid. Like, if you like each other and you all make good music and you're all good at what you do, that's all you need to know. Like, that's it. That's the whole fucking point. So no, I completely get that. So, but just before we get to the last little segment here, what should we look forward to next from you guys? Are you actively in studio? Are you writing new stuff? Is it a state secret? Like, what's next on the horizon for TDP that you will and want to share with me?
Well, in my opinion, it's still cold here. It's absolutely miserable out today. But it's going to be getting warm soon. And I know that everybody's itching to play shows. So I think at least what I want to do is put that in the forefront and get out there and play some shows. But now that we have a little more time to where we don't have to come out with 7 songs in 5 days, we're gonna probably on the back end constantly be working on some new stuff. Same vein, that maybe a little more thought out. And a little more interesting.
Not building the plane while you're flying it. Okay, yeah.
The urgency for new material has passed, and we're going to be pushing that really hard.
Okay.
All that stuff comes out and releases formally on the 13th, which we also have next weekend when we also have the release show
Right.
with some good friends of ours from Northwest Alabama. So we'll be pushing this EP. Is we calling it an EP or an album? We're going to push this album for the first half of the year really hard.
Yeah.
Maybe come up with another album in the works for the next half, because shit sucks in winter around here. Nobody's going out, and it just slows down so much around here. If you're not like a house cover band, you're not getting work. You're not going
Gotcha.
out anywhere.
Okay.
So, yeah, we take this last 3 or 4 months of the year to recalibrate and get ready, and we're ready to hit it hard this year.
Yeah.
Okay. And do we have a name for this album? Because it is listed as singles on Spotify, so there's no name for it yet. Do you guys even know what it's going to be?
It's just self-titled.
I would call it Fugitive Rescue. That's what I'm going to vote for.
TDT, Fugitive.
Yeah.
I
That's
think you
my
should.
reality show.
Yeah.
This year.
Or fuck everything up and call it TJWP, the JW Project, but that's just the name of the album. See? You got it. I'm thinking, like, it's like that thing. It's that thing from The Hangover where all the Pythagorean theorem signs are. I don't know. I'm just vibing. Just, take whatever you want. I won't even charge you for the ideas. It's totally up to you. But all right. So listen, before I let you go, we like to end every show with a little segment that we call In the Vox Seat. I have asked every musician who has been on this show the same 5 questions, okay? And they range from the sublime to the ridiculous. And the final question has become a fucking goat rodeo I cannot even explain to you, but I will a little bit try when we get there. So let's start with one of the easier ones. If each of you had to sum up in 5 words or less TDP's music, what would you each say and why? Or really, what would you each say?
5
You don't even
words
have to
or
take-
less.
5 words or yes. All the counting going on.
This crazy fucking shit show rocks.
This crazy fucking shit show rocks. Okay. All right. I'll take it, JW. That works. 5 words. It says something. And it does rock. So,
We are here. Please listen.
okay. I like that too. Very utilitarian answers there, but I like it. It has a lot of spunk in its way. Okay. That's totally fine. So, for each of you, and this is however many words you want, your favorite thing about being a musician.
I love the attention.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me a while to come to terms with what it was that I really enjoyed about it. But when you're on stage, I mean, Josh has life problems and anxiety and depression, but JW on stage gets to live, he's a rock star. And for that time that I'm on stage, 45 minutes, 3 hours, whatever we're doing, I feel like I get to be me,
Minus
be
all the
authentic
shit.
and truest self.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And people, it's just anyone who tells you that they don't like receiving the positive attention that comes with being a musician on stage is lying.
Yeah.
But it's awesome. I mean, when people recognize you for something that you're doing or something that you've done, or after a show when they come up and say, "Brother, you kicked ass," that's a high that I ride for the next week and a half. So
Yeah.
I really love how it makes me feel.
It's a great answer. And I love that it's honest too, because a lot of people will be like, oh, it's not. And if you're on stage, some element of you enjoys that attention. Like, it's just because you don't have to do that. So I completely appreciate that. And I love specifically what you said about it's like you, but with all of the difficult stuff that you have to carry around all day, taken out for a while. Because I know what that feels like. You get into that headspace where you're not in your own head. And it's like, if you could capture that all the time, Like, I want to go to there. I want to do that. So I totally,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I totally get that. Okay. What about you, Zach? Your favorite thing?
I guess being a musician allows me to connect with the world in ways that I otherwise couldn't.
Mm.
It gives me a voice
Mm.
where I'd otherwise just be silent.
I'm not even going to editorialize that. That's perfect as it is. Okay. All right. I love it. But now, flip side for each of you, your least favorite thing about being a musician. And I'm wondering, JW, if you're going to say what every drummer generally says.
Setting up and packing it and taking it home.
Loading in and loading out of equipment. I'm the vocalist, and most vocalists don't carry anything but a mic stand. I help with everything.
I'm the same way. Same way. Same thing. Sherpa with the PA on your back.
We used to have a drummer that had a full cage. Man, lugging that thing around was a pain in the butt.
There's a local band here where the guy's kit is probably like 100 pieces, including a gigantic gong.
Right.
Actual gong. I can't even. He must show up at like 11 in the morning for an 8 o'clock gig. But
chicks never want the drummer. Because think about it. If you go to a show and you pick up the singer, maybe they got to carry their microphone, but usually it's house sound, so they don't have to do it. They can leave immediately. You pick up the guitarist or the bassist, it's like a trip or two out to the car. You pick up a drummer, God forbid somebody with a monstrosity like I have, you're there for half an hour, 45 minutes after the show. By that time, you've sobered up, you see what they really look like, you don't want to think for them. So yes, moving the thing is awful.
Hauling my shit around.
there it is.
If I had $1 for every time I had to haul that shit from my practice space to my car to the venue, up some fucking stairs, down some fucking stairs, and then back again, I could quit all this shit, and just retire forever. But, in a way, it comes with the territory. I mean, I can't pay nobody else to do it, and as long as my back is able and I'm strong enough, I'm going to keep doing it,
Yeah.
But I would say that, I have little anxiety, PTSD, flashbacks every time we have to unload and break down all that stuff, and then I have to set it back up exactly the same way I had it in the practice space, which is not possible.
No.
You cannot get it the same way in the same configuration twice.
Never. Never.
Because it's all different heights and shit.
That's right.
But really, just that is probably if I had to put a finger on it and say, this is what I just absolutely fucking hate. It's just the physical labor aspect of it.
No, you are holding the drummer tradition strong. That has been a very popular answer with our percussionists. So totally get it. All right.
Well,
what about
drummers are a unique breed, and we're all. I mean, we look different. We may act slightly different, but drummers are all the same, and we're basically facets of the same person. And I think we all hate the same shit about it too. So, monkey recognize monkey.
Okay, I like the back from the chimp brain to monkey recognize monkey. I love it. But okay, all right, Zach. What about you? Since you're not the drummer, you can't use the same answer.
Okay, because I was going to. It would have been easy.
You don't hold shit.
But I hate it for you.
I hate it so much for JW that he has to break down and load out and load in and set up. I get okay.
I sit back and I watch that. And I'm like, damn, that's got to be tough.
This sucks, bro. Sucks for you.
I guess my biggest gripe isn't about the playing live or playing at all. It's the business side.
Yeah.
The lack of support. And I mean, I'm going to sound like I'm bitching, but there's a lot of people out there who support their friends' businesses, buy their art. They go to their restaurants. They, but they think that they should get an album for free.
Yeah.
Even though
or
that costs
shirt or
energy. And, luckily we have our own label and, I produce everything. Otherwise, we'd be paying, on average around here, it's $645 an hour in the studio.
Yeah.
But still, it costs us our time and replication costs and everything.
Yep.
Music is the most underappreciated form of art.
Yep.
Yep. And even to the point to where, you know, as a producer, I have a lot of credits, a lot of producer credits. And, you know, people want to come and record, and I cut them one hell of a deal, and they still don't want to pay it.
Everyone consumes music, but no one gives a shit where it comes from.
Exactly.
Or the people that make it. It's just like that. Now, do the thing, artist. You know,
Yeah.
do the thing.
Dance, monkey, dance. Yeah.
Hey, I'm just making all the.
I know, it's terrible.
Hey, robots making the art while humans do the hard labor.
Yeah.
That's not the future that the Jetsons prepared for.
Yeah. I can get up on a whole nother tangent, but yeah. So my biggest gripe is that, and the way the industry screws artists too. We just get screwed all the way around.
Oh yeah. Isn't that so fucked up though? That like, I mean, JW can attest to it more, I guess, because he's the one that does the social media stuff. But like, we've had that experience too of like, I've been in bands since I was 14 years old, and like, I've had more support for my music, you know, online from people I've never met and probably will never meet than from people that are like in my friend circle, some family member. Like, what is that? Like, what is it? You know, like there are so many memes about that. Like, oh, you know, are you coming to my show? Well, yes, but probably no. Or like, you know, like, hey, you know, I'm here to see the band. Do I have to pay the cover? Well, if you're here to support your friends, why do you want to get in for free? Because that's their money you're taking. I don't understand that mental. So you don't sound like you're bitching. I think everybody watching this completely understands what you just said, and it is a universal thing, and it's bullshit. But I mean, the industry is not set up to, you know, favor or benefit artists just to consume them and benefit from them, and it's super fucked up. But okay, yeah, I think it's as solid an answer as breaking down JW's drums, but you know. Okay, so this one, some people hate this question. You may or may not. But for each of you, if you had to choose just one album to listen to for the rest of your lives, you only get one album. What album would you choose and why?
That's a tough one. It really is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's so many to pick from.
Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Don't hit him, JW. You have a 364-day streak. Don't do it. Don't ruin it. Okay, so Sgt. Pepper, tell me why. I mean, I know, but like, tell me your why.
It's such a wonderfully crafted album. You know, I get, you know, and if not that, it would probably be Revolver.
Okay.
And if not that, it would probably be something from The Doors. Like The Greatest Hits from The Doors. But and all for the same, you know, I mean, even though musically it's different, it would be the same elements. The way it was recorded, you know, being, you know, autistic and a producer, and an audiophile, you know, I hear things that others might not. And there's so many interesting things in those records that, you know, and I love that.
Yeah.
The way, and the, you can really, at least for me, I feel like I can almost feel, identify, and smell the times of that era through that music. You know, if that doesn't sound weird.
No, so you have almost like a synesthetic reaction to what you're hearing then.
Yeah.
No, I totally, no, it is very hard for me to find anything weird. But Greg and I have had that conversation a bunch of just, you know, seeing shapes in music and like, so I totally get that, you know, that it brings in all those things. And I love that for you, it's, you know, archival too, of it's very much of a time. You know, that you're getting a sense of the whole thing. It's like a historical experience. I love that. So okay, Sgt. Pepper's totally solid choice, no matter what JW might be about to say about it. But all right, buddy, you had a bunch to choose from. He bought you a little time. Have you chosen your victor?
I have, yeah. I would probably have to go with Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park.
Okay, that is not at all what I would have predicted. Hybrid Theory. Okay.
I was like 13, and they were probably one of my first forays into like emo. It was very hot at that time. But when I was 13, I would pop in Hybrid Theory into my boombox, and I would play PlayStation 1 for hours, just repeating the same like 13 songs over and over again. So it very much takes me back to a very formative part of my life that, kind of like what Zach was saying, when I listen to songs from that album, it teleports me back in time. And all of a sudden I'm 13 again, and I got my soda and snacks and PlayStation controller and not shit to do for the next 8 hours. It just takes me to a better place. And some people like to say that Linkin Park's old stuff didn't really age very well, and to those people I would say, fuck you. It does. It holds up today.
Well, it does. It does.
And that is, my friends, what the Jetsons would also say if you ask them about that album is fuck you, because yes, it does. So I love it. Okay. So I love though that so Zach's being transported to a place he never was and a time that he never was. And you are being transported back to a very specific, happy, personal time. So I love that. And that's one of the best things about music is it can do both. It can make you feel like you're somewhere you never were and experiencing something you missed out on. And it can also just be like, I have those songs too, where I'm like, I am, 17 years old, driving barefoot with the windows open and my hair blowing around, just listening to whatever. And like, it takes you right back. So I always love that. Nobody's going to shit on Linkin Park for you. We will just mute them in the chat if they try. So, all right, this is it, guys. We are at the last question. It is, without exaggeration, the most important question you will ever answer in your lives, because you are going to either win or lose fans with your answers. Okay, it is. This has become a. Songs are being written about it. T-shirts made, just battles among friends. It has become a lightning rod issue. This is so. I'm gonna just freaky Dom. Just calm down for a second. We're gonna hear them out. Here we go. Your toilet paper roll. When you put the toilet paper on the roll, does it come from over the top or under the bottom, and why?
It goes from the back. So like you put the flap at the back so that you're pulling it down, it pulls easier.
Okay, you're an over guy. Okay, yeah. Because that's just easier. That's it. It's just a ease of use. I feel
like you can yank it. My technique is very specific. Like the ball and wad and yank is all one fluid motion. So if it's not hung the right way and you yank on it, it's just going to pull the roll.
So yeah. You're a baller in water prior to the rip. That's an interesting technique.
Yeah, it's all I get all I need in one go.
Very drummer of you. Okay, so JW is an over guy. Okay, so I know some of you have probably caught on to the fact that he said one thing and I thought he said another. So JW told me, he said, yeah, it comes from the back. And he was going like this, which from my angle said over. But if you turn it around from his angle, it's clearly under. So I said, so you're an over. And he agreed, because why would a normal person of any type know what the hell I was talking about in that moment? He's actually an under, okay? So I have made a mistake. We've had a lot of discussion about it in the house. Greg figured this out and came running to me and said, you got it wrong. You got the toilet paper wrong. And I thought he meant like in the house. And so it's been a whole thing. So because we are above board, we are scientists, we are data wonks, we had to correct this. So even though he has been said in the episode to be an over, he's actually an under. Now, I know, Joe, Freaky, I know you're upset right now, but we have to be fair. So I feel that I have a responsibility to the community to apologize to JW and the Domogalla Project, to apologize for my error. I know it's horrible and unforgivable, and there's a word for what I feel. I can't really think of what it is. It could be regret. It could be apology. It could be remorse. It could. Okay, he's an under. An under. Zach, your answer?
And it better be the right one, motherfucker.
Or I quit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I got the perfect answer. I was figuring what was going to be asked is does pineapple belong on pizza? Because that'll lose you some friends.
That actually was an opening question for, I believe, Michael Bate.
You know what? I don't feel comfortable. Can we move on? Can we?
And he had a very long answer about some fancy pizza place, and I was like, dude, I'm talking about like, your corner pizzeria with some dole out of a can. But okay, so no, would you like to side answer that question, or are you a pineapple on pizza guy?
I think it depends on mood sometimes.
Because that might feed directly into the toilet paper question, depending on the quality of them.
I'm actually a really boring person, so if I feel like being festive, I'll do something crazy like put pineapple on pizza, or
that's it.
Way out there.
That's your wild moment. Okay, so you are a maybe on the pineapple on pizza, and when it comes to your toilet paper, you are
neither.
You're an other.
No, not on a roller.
He doesn't wipe his ass.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
He wipes it with the pineapple pizza, which is a whole other thing. So okay,
which is the only thing there's element for flavor.
So you are an other. So what are you, just like you put it on the back of the tank kind of guy? What's your move?
Yeah. I was born with I guess the disability of being left-handed. And so I smear my writing. I have to pay more for guitars. And so having that experience, might as well just leave it on the back. So whoever's right-handed, left-handed, over, under, upside down, it's their choice.
You're an egalitarian when it comes to your toilet paper placement. I appreciate that. I wasn't sure where we were going with the smearing, but I'm glad it was just your writing that we were talking about in this context. So I appreciate that. But okay, so we have an over and an other. Do you, for reasons I won't ask, if you do happen to know Caleb's toilet paper orientation, or are you going to have to ask him after this? Because now you really need to know.
I think we're going to have to ask him because I've never
okay.
asked him about his shitting habits.
I haven't either, but I know him well enough that it's probably napkins from fast food restaurants.
Okay, so Caleb may be making a run for the border. So, all right, we have an I'm actually real glad for all of you that you didn't have that answer right at the fingertips, because that would have asked a lot of other questions. So I'm glad
we're really close.
Really close.
Really close. Yeah, that's one of the ways you guys decompress, is just to hang out in the bathroom together or something. But
yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So we have another over, we have an under, we have whatever the hell Caleb is. So listen, you guys, this was so much fun. It really, I enjoy your music so much, and I am so happy that we connected, and that you guys have each other, and that it all works the way it works, and that that I got to talk to you and highlight you guys, because I know people on social media know you, but I don't think they know you well enough. So I'm going to call on the community right now, my bandits. They need more love. Like, follow, subscribe, do all the things, listen to the music, stream the stuff on Spotify. It will not even take you very long, and you will enjoy it. Look at this. I mean, we've got costumes going on. We've got all kinds of things. We want to support TDP and TJWP, which is the unofficial name of the new album. Thank you very much. And so listen, make sure you pay attention. It's already come out by now, but what was released on the 13th, go love them up. And thank you guys so much for being here and talking to me for all this time.
Thank you.
One love. I had a great time. We're big fans.
Oh, so glad. Thank you guys so much. Zach, I hope you feel better. Your little burrito is serving you well. Thank you guys again for being on. Thank you everybody for watching. That's another Vox and Guest in the Books. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.